Welcome to the CX Files. I'm Peter Ryan. Now, the construction of a contact center facility has never been as complicated as it is today. And if it's done incorrectly, it can cost an operator huge sums of needlessly wasted money. Now, this is why in recent years, the opportunity to work with a contact center implementation services provider has become a much more desirable option for both captive and BPO players. Today, the CX Files speaks to Victor Pereda, the CEO of contact center implementation services firm Nearsol, to find out more about what's driving this growing business model. Victor Pereda, welcome to the CX Files podcast. So glad that you could take a few minutes to chat with us.
Thank you for having me, Peter. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, my friend. And today we're here to talk a little bit about what Nearsol is doing in terms of contact center implementation services. I think a good point of departure for our discussion today is, could you tell us a little bit about what contact center implementation services are, if you could sum it up in just a few lines?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the creation of an ideal operational space. It creates a strategy from the location, technology, staffing, and operationals where you materialize the corporate vision and you ensure that the execution of the project takes place the right way.
Got it. Okay. And it's interesting because this is not something that you hear a lot of organizations getting involved with in the broader CX dynamic. How did Nearsol decide that they were going to become specialists in contact center implementation services?
I think a lot of it has to do with our real estate background. When we were in Guatemala, we saw a niche in the market. We saw that there was a need for a company to support BPOs and captives that were trying to enter or expand into a geo. As you know, a lot of these companies have been using an array of consultants, real estate firms, recruitment agencies, you name it, right? Every type of support. So we noticed that there wasn't a company that could handle and support all of these moving pieces. And that's what we focus on. We try to make it into a place where companies can rely on every single piece of the implementation and not just focus on one thing. Something that we saw is when a lot of these companies were hiring different consultants, the consultants only cares about what he's offering. Our job is to make sure or to ensure that there's success for the company in every line of business, right? From finding the location, finding the right talent, to everything that has to do with government and any local, expertise.
So then effectively what Nearsol would do, or any contact center implementation provider, they would be effectively a one-stop shop for the inception of an idea about a contact center being constructed all the way through to the actual operation of the center.
That is correct. Exactly. So we become a one-stop shop for everything from understanding the market to getting the operation up and running.
Okay, cool. And Victor, what do you see as, or what do the clients tell you that they see as the advantage to using this approach versus perhaps engaging subject matter experts, albeit ones that work for different companies or that aren't aligned with the same, perhaps under one umbrella?
I think, what you summarized, I think that being the one-stop shop makes it better, because if you hire different subject matter experts, they're only worried about their business. So they're only worried about making sure the recruitment works. They're not worried for you to be successful in other areas. And we do, because your success is our success. So we leverage the knowledge that we have from architect, designers, promotional agencies, and also utilizing our broad supplier network to facilitate, from buying power, discounted supplies, and pretty much helping the company enter this and having the lowest investment possible.
Okay. And if you were to think about the typical project in terms of contact center implementation, from start to finish, what would the length look like? Typically speaking, how long would you spend on one project from start to finish?
It really varies on the size of the project, but in general terms, a company can be up and running in as little as 90 days.
90 days, that's quite something. And some of the things that I think are really important when we consider contact center implementation services, and it's an area that I've studied, it's an area that I've looked into, but I'm always fascinated by the different elements, the different components that go into a contact center. And something that I've always tried to do over the course of my time as an advisor or an analyst is to label them into 4 or 5 different categories or 4 or 5 different buckets. You've got the facilities construction, you've got the facilities maintenance, you've got your technology, you've got the network connectivity and the infrastructure, you've got security, which is a big part. What are you finding that the clients are asking you to focus on the most these days? Are there any priority elements that are going into a construction that are perhaps more important in 2021 and beyond than others?
I think it's, in my opinion, it's a location. I think it's very critical. A lot of companies that do not understand the market, they get, sent to locations where they're not going to be successful. So a location is critical in the aspect of it has to be attractive for your talent to come to work, right? And it also has to be attractive and safe for your clients to come in. So there's a lot of variables in the aspect of understanding that there's public transportation close by, that there's places where your agents can eat. So there's a lot of factors that can make it very critical. Definitely, like you're saying, the technology, all of that, it's very important. But I think having the right location is going to be your make it or break it.
And I think that makes a lot of sense when we think about the fact that labor for a contact center, whether it's in the US, whether it's in the nearshore or the offshore, attrition is a big issue. And you want to make sure you can do as much as you possibly can in terms of making, I suppose, a location as accessible as possible, but also as pleasant as possible. And therein lies another question, Victor. One of the things that we've been tracking at Ryan Strategic Advisory for a while now has been some operators prefer to house a contact center, maybe in a city center where there's central transportation hubs, where, as you say, lots of services for the agents during breaks or over lunch hours, maybe even after work. Equally speaking, we've also been getting an idea about the popularity of perhaps business parks that are maybe situated in the outskirts or in the suburbs of different communities. Are you getting a sense that your clients are showing a preference one direction or the other in terms of where they would like a contact center facility constructed?
It's a hard question. What I've seen is, there are the clients that prefer to be in the city center. It's more attractive. It's more corporate, and typically, the costs are going to be a bit higher. And then you have the companies that are looking for the massive centers, and they go to these business parks because they have, just the sites are bigger. They're able to house way more people there. So I think it varies. I don't think there's a pro or a con on any of them, but it really comes back to I guess the corporate culture of the company. If they're trying to be very modern and very, I guess metropolitan, they want to be in the city center. But if they're just trying to deliver great service, regardless of where they're located, they typically go to the business centers.
And from the standpoint of one of the priorities that we know in the broader commercial community right now is environmental friendliness. To what extent are you seeing demands for more green construction or green-oriented construction of different contact center facilities?
We're not getting a lot of requests from our clients in that direction. We are offering, we're looking for buildings that are LEED certified. We're looking for something as, waterless, urinals, like little things here and there that will make the site a little bit more greener. It hasn't become yet a big request, but I see it coming in the future. And I think it's going to continue to evolve into, as green as possible.
Which is a good thing. And I've been to some of these green centers, whether it's individual contact centers or business parks in different parts of the world. And something that I think has become abundantly clear is that you don't need to sacrifice quality or convenience by using green construction materials, so to speak.
That's correct.
Yeah. So, Victor, thinking into your crystal ball, as somebody who's been around the BPO space in contact center implementation services and equally speaking as a provider of contact center services, what do you think the future of the implementation services side of your business is going to look like in the post-pandemic period as we move into the period where we can pretty well count on most individuals are going to have been vaccinated, and the return to the contact center is going to be the norm. What do you anticipate your clients are going to be looking for in regards to how contact centers are constructed and laid out?
I think the business will go in two different directions. One will, pretty much remain the same, whereas companies will continue to have the mega centers, of course, with new restrictions, new safety protocols in place, but they will continue to operate business as usual. And then you have a second set of companies that will focus on small hub and spoke centers around metropolitan areas. This second set of companies will use these smaller centers to train agents, as well as support low performing agents to continue promoting their culture and their values. But at the same time, they will utilize the small hub and spoke centers, but they will have a massive work at home environment around it. So you'll have, like I said, you have the large ones, and then you have these ones that will have small pockets throughout many cities and many countries versus having this huge center.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we're starting to hear a lot more about some of these smaller centers within the city, say the city center, or very convenient areas where you might have agents that are working a couple of days, 3 days at home, but they're able to come in and work for a couple of days in perhaps an atmosphere that might resemble, as somebody mentioned the other day, a co-working space like the old WeWorks that we used to see before the pandemic. So I guess it'll be an interesting ride to see how things play out. But it's been great having you on the show, Victor. Thank you very much, and good luck in terms of Nearsol's endeavors when it comes to contact center implementation services.
Thanks, Peter. And again, thank you for having me. I appreciate always chatting with you, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Victor.
Thanks for downloading the CX Files podcast. If you have a moment, please give us a star rating or review on your favorite podcast provider, because this really helps other people to find the podcast. If you have any suggestions for future guests, or ideas, people, or topics, then please just find myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan on LinkedIn and send a suggestion.